The Indian Parliament, often called the Temple of Democracy, works on age-old convention, methods and practices. Now these are of paramount importance and significance to understand the working of the Indian Parliament. One of the fundamental aspects is motions, a parliamentary procedure which is at the heart of the working of Indian Parliament. Motions in parliamentary parlance are proposals for getting a decision either from Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. A motion may lead to a discussion on a subject matter put forward by a member. The view or opinion of the House on an issue can only be through a motion. The proposal has to be put forward by the chairman of the House to the members for their acceptance or rejection. A member may be the initiator of the motion, which the House may take up in totality or make some changes. Simply put, it is the method to ascertain the will or view of the Parliament on a certain issue. Though a strict definition is difficult, there are various types of motion for different situations depending on constitutional and legal requirements of the matter at hand. The first and the most important one is a substantive motion. Independent motions put before the House for getting the will of the Parliament on a certain matter. Such motions may be brought in to express the confidence of the House in the government or to assert any view of the Parliament on a broader subject matter. For example, during the historic Indo-US nuclear treaty negotiations and the opposition from the left parties, then Prime Minister Manmohan Singh moved a confidence motion on the floor of the House. This was a substantive motion.
Is the withdrawal of support by the left parties on the issue of our initiative on seeking international cooperation in the development of civil nuclear energy. The intimation of withdrawal of this support came to me while I was in Japan attending the meeting of the G8. As soon as I came back, I saw an appointment with Her Excellency the President, and I offered to submit myself to the vote of confidence in Parliament as soon as possible.
The second one are substitute motions. These motions are moved in substitution of the original motion. They may depend on the original motion or the substantive motion for their scope and extent. For example, suppose there is a substantive motion on an economic crisis plaguing the country, there may be substitute motions for health of the state-run banks or the depreciation of Indian rupee in the international market. For example, back on 18 September 1991, with the financial fraud from the Bank of Credit and Commerce International, a motion was moved by Jaswant Singh seeking legal tightening of norms to protect the financial interests of Indian investors and account holders. Multiple substitutions were suggested by various party leaders. When Aadhaar was being debated in Parliament, there were multiple motions which were moved by individual members seeking some changes, amendment in the Parent Aadhaar Act and the relevant provisions.
The question is that the bill be passed. Those in favor may say aye. That's it. Those against may say no. I think the ayes have it. The motion is adopted and the bill is passed.
All of these were the examples of the substitute motions that were moved on the floor of the House in Parliament. The third one is subsidiary motion, which depends on substantive and substitute motions. They necessarily concern an issue or topic arising out of a substantive or a substitute motion. For example, the motion to refer a particular bill to a select committee or a particular bill introduced earlier to be taken into consideration. Let's now talk about how a motion can be introduced. It can only be done so by a notice in writing to the Secretary General of the Parliament. The members may give notice to the Secretary General. Detailed rules exist for prioritizing motions and in which order the House may take them up. There is no particular format for presenting a motion in Parliament. It could be a statement, a proposal, an intent that could be put before the Parliament to get the will of the House on a certain subject matter. However, there are laid guidelines and norms that a Speaker must follow before he or she decides on admitting a motion on the floor of the House. Amongst the various other guidelines that exist, one of the most important one is that it should not be defamatory to any particular individual. It should not draw inferences on the character of any individual other than their public life, which concerns people at large, and it must be a matter or an issue that concerns public at large.